President Trump taking his case for border security to the American people. In week 3 of the shutdown stalemate, the president set to deliver his first primetime Oval Office address tomorrow night on what he's calling the, quote, humanitarian and national security crisis on our southern border. And on Thursday, President Trump is heading to McAllen, Texas, to survey the situation on the ground and meet with immigration officials. The president also now saying he's willing to compromise on building a concrete wall, and Trump isn't ruling out declaring a national emergency if Congress doesn't give him the necessary funding.
They don't like concrete, so we'll give them steel. Steel is actually more expensive than concrete, but it'll look beautiful and it's very strong. It's actually stronger. We're looking at a national emergency because we have a national emergency. Just read the papers. It is national security. It's a national emergency.
Democrat Congressman Jerry Nadler says he doubts the president will be truthful in his address to the nation tomorrow night.
The president has announced that he's going to address the country tomorrow night on the so-called crisis at the border. I expect the president to lie to the American people. Why do I expect this? Because he has been lying to the American people, and his spokespeople continue lying to the American people.
And Senator Lindsey Graham is slamming the, quote, radical left for refusing to negotiate with the GOP.
As long as the radical left is in charge, we're never going to get anywhere. The president will compromise, but he will not capitulate. So that's where we're at. I'm not going to negotiate with somebody who calls the Border Patrol agents a bunch of Nazis when they're trying to defend the border against a mob.
All right, well, I think we have to start with our newest Fox News contributor, Emily. Congratulations. We're glad that you're a contributor to Fox News. So we'll give you the first shot at talking about the president making a decision to address the nation tomorrow night.
Thank you so much. First of all, really, it's such an honor to be part of this family. So
you're welcome.
You guys. All right, of course. So I think what's important for me is for viewers to understand what it would look like if the president actually declared a national emergency and what trickles down from that. And basically, in the 70s, this act was passed. It was post-Watergate. It was post-Vietnam. And the main thing that he would have to do is cite a specific emergency provision, a specific emergency power, right, that activates what he's asking for. And so there are hundreds of them, by the way. There are hundreds of provisions under this act, and he just has to specifically cite it. And underneath that, he gets extraordinary authority. He can take land. He can seize property. He can restrict travel, etc. And we are hearing already from the left and some of those comments things like, well, we're going to take this to court, and this is just like the steel thing, and it's not. It's totally separate. The only challengeable aspect would be whether that specificity is tied together, right? And the other thing that people should understand is that those specific provisions, there's monetary associations with it. So if he went under the Immigration Act, for example, that caps at $20 million. So really, and there's a ton more options and whatnot, but basically a kind of overview would be cobbling together the money and the funding and whether that's an articulable specificity. And by the way, it pretty much is. Because, for example, under that Immigration Act, all that needs to happen is for him to cite the fact that the current resources are basically being stretched thin, that they're not keeping up with it. So there's that. And then I also think on Representative Jeffries' comment about, well, we don't want to hold the American people hostage any longer over this medieval wall.
I actually have that. Let's listen to that, and then
Okay.
we'll get you and Jesse to comment on this because he wanted to comment too. Do we have that montage, please?
We need to actually reopen the government and stop holding the American people hostage simply because Donald Trump wants a medieval border wall.
A 4th century concrete wall that you can't see through will be a less effective border barrier.
Let's spend the citizens' money in a smart fashion, not with some 4th century, basically pointless strategy.
So the 4th century talking point has gone out, the signal.
Yeah, and here's my point. He said that holds us hostage right now, this standoff. We're already held hostage. We are held hostage throughout the entire nation right now with everything that is coming over the southern border and how it impacts all aspects of the criminal justice system. It's not just the drugs coming across or migrants seeking asylum. It goes so much deeper than that. When we have what's the currency of all the gangs riddling these cities? It is drugs. How are sheriffs prevented? How are the relations between ICE, et cetera? It's multi-layers.
It is indeed. What do you think about that 4th century comment?
Well, he's not using leeches at the southern border. He's using proven security
Not
techniques.
yet, Jesse.
Yeah, just wait. Listen, a lot of things are useful that have been used for a very long time from medieval times. Shackles, blades, men on horseback, prisons, shields. You know, those things are useful because
some of your favorite things, Jesse.
Some of the things in Gutfeld's basement. So, you know, the president likes to use the analogy of the wheel. The wheel works over time, and it's because it's effective, just like walls are effective. I don't like how Nadler's saying the president is going to lie tomorrow night. The president's told the truth on the caravan from the beginning. He said it was mostly men. Not a bunch of women and children. The men were looking for money, not asylum. And what happened when the caravan finally reached the southern border? Uptick 300% in violence perpetrated against the border agents. If anything, the president has compromised and moderated his position. If you look at, he's offering now $800 million for a humanitarian situation. He's saying now we want a steel fence. The steel fence has been voted on positively by Democrats in the past. It's environmentally friendly. The water can just trickle through it. It helps the U.S. steel industry as well. People can see through it, so they have visibility on the other side. A lot of these things that the president's doing is trying to bring Nancy Pelosi to the negotiating table. If anything, Nancy looks like the one stuck in the mud.
But Juan, I do think that the Democrats seem vulnerable on that point, that they did vote for secure fencing in the past. And does it really matter if it's steel or concrete?
No, this whole thing is a manufactured, you know, political...
From both sides?
No, from the Trump is the one who's created this. The Democrats didn't create it.
But my question was, they have voted in the past for secure fencing.
Yes, they voted for border security. I mean, if the argument is Democrats don't care about border security, that's patently false. This whole thing, though, is striking to me in that the only way to understand this is that Trump is playing base tribal politics. Most independents don't support it. Obviously, most Democrats don't support it. There is no national emergency. You can go back to the midterms. Remember, we were being invaded. Oh, now it looks like there was no invasion. There was a bunch of desperate people. At the moment, he says, oh, there are all these criminals coming over. If you watched Fox News Sunday yesterday, Chris Wallace absolutely dismantled Sarah Huckabee Sanders on this point. There is no evidence, even from Trump's own Justice Department, his own immigration services. So he's doing this for some political reason, and it's not quite clear what it is, except to me to distract from his own problems with Wall Street going on, to the failure to enact an asylum ban, to the problems he has with John Bolton contradicting him about the pullout.
Well, let's stick on. Well, there's plenty that we could talk about, but let's stick on this. So the president's going to address the nation tomorrow night. Can he address all those things that Juan is saying for independents that might not be on board?
Yeah, I think he should address the crux of the argument of the Democrats when they're constantly saying walls are immoral. Okay, that's the whole point, and that's kind of like what everybody's saying. Oh, it's horrible, it's immoral. Well, what about the walls that we already have then? Should we ask Nancy Pelosi about removing the walls that we already have on the border, because there are walls on the border? This stance is so weak. You could blow it over with a sneeze. And also, I know Juan always keeps saying, oh, it's appealing to the base. Essentially, that's what politics is you're appealing to the people who voted for you, and he made a promise that he was going to build a wall. It might have put him in a corner. It might, but he has to actually address it because no one really addressed it in this way before. The fact is the Democrats agree with him on everything, and the only reason why they won't do it, it's because it's him. So the bottom line is it's a personal vendetta. And President Trump tomorrow should talk about the wall, but also should talk about the personal vendetta and say, look, hey, clearly the Democrats were for this, but they don't like me. So I'm going to step out of this. I want somebody else to take charge of this. I'll step out of the room. So I don't want the credit. I will step out of here. You get the engineers involved, because you just heard Schumer say that it's not so much about the money now, it's that they don't have a plan. Well, that's the step. So now you come up with a plan with the engineers involved.
Ask the experts what they need.
Ask the experts what they need. But I'm going to step out of it.
Last week you said you wanted Dr. Phil to be the expert.
No, Dr. Drew, not Dr. Phil.
Sorry.
Dr. Drew.
No offense.
But I think we should call him Dr. Frankenstein. But I just wanted to say to you, if that's the case, if it's just about the way you pose it, Trump hatred, well, how come we had 2 years of a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, and Trump in the White House didn't get done? How come we have a situation where Trump says the Mexicans will pay for this wall? Oh, I don't see that. How about he says the wall's being built and there's no wall? He just keeps lying, and you guys keep buying.
No, I'm not buying anything, but I will say this. I do love a stalemate, and I'll tell you why. Because I like slow government. I'm like a slow cooker. So I'm okay with this going on. And the thing is, and here's an interesting truth. What if you threw a government shutdown and nobody came? I mean, it really is interesting. We sit here and we go, it's day 14 or it's the third week.
I want to hike in the national parks tomorrow, and I can't.
Well, really?
And I really need a good hike.
You do. I've seen you put on weight.
Thank you.
How about 800,000 people who don't get paid, plus, I guess, 40,000 contractors? Those are real people.
Yeah, well, they're real people that, if you look at employment across the board, Juan, it's been an amazing achievement across the board.
So we should punish these people?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are some things you get with the pluses and the minuses. And right now, Trump, this is a shutdown that's happening after. I hear you.
All right,
I say Juan doesn't get paid during the shutdown. Can we agree on that?
Give me your money, buddy.